What if Jaime Lannister exposed the Mad King's Wildfire plan? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The throne room of the Red Keep is silent as all gathered lords stare at the sight before them. Ned, Tywin, and Robert all stare at the remains of the Targaryens. The smallest of the corpses was the children of Rhaegar. All of them are disgusted by this, and Ned will bring that up later. But what gets his attention is the work of Ser Jaime. The knight was seated atop the Iron Throne, but he wisely got off when Robert arrived. At the foot of the throne was King Aerys, his throat slit and his blood on Jaime's sword. From Tywin, such action was expected, but from Jaime, a sworn knight of the Kingsguard, it is unthinkable. Ned feels his fist tightening as he regards the Lannisters and shakes his head.
What is the meaning of this? You killed him.
I did. Tell me, weren't you preparing to do the same? Or were you planning on trying to negotiate with him?
We weren't his sworn protectors. How could you do this?
The same as any man. I put a sword to his throat and I opened it up. As to why? He was mad and prepared to do unspeakable things if I hadn't.
Enough of this. Robert, surely you can see we must detain him.
No, I will hear what my son has to say.
The Mad King wasn't just raving when he spoke of becoming the King of Ashes. He had a contingency prepared should the capital ever fall. Caches of wildfire have been hidden across the city, ready to be detonated if the need arises. And when my father's men stormed the capital, he gave the order to light them.
The news sends the room temperature tumbling. The lords and knights all look at one another. Fear crosses their eyes. Then they stare at the ground beneath their feet. Could there be a batch of wildfire burning right underneath them?
I caught his chief pyromancer preparing to carry out this order, so I slew him. But I knew Aerys would simply command another to carry them out, so I made sure he couldn't.
So it wasn't part of your father's plan?
I did not inform anyone in the city of my intentions, Lord Stark. That would have been too risky, even for my son. If you doubt my son, then perhaps we should check with the pyromancers.
This is a reasonable demand, and though Rosart was killed, several of his subordinates survived and were captured by the Starks and Baratheons. When they are interrogated, some of the high-ranking ones break and confirm everything, down to where the wildfire is located. This news sends a fresh wave of panic through the court, and Robert handles the removal of this dangerous substance. While he is handling that, Lord Stark looks for Ser Jaime. Jaime's words cause everything to click together in Ned, and he regards the knight differently than he did a second ago. Instead of seeing a traitor and an oathbreaker who betrayed his king out of convenience, he now sees a man who is torn between two impossible decisions. For once, Ned sees the heaviness on Jaime's shoulders, the way his body seems to sag, and the haunted look in his eyes. Whatever he may have done, it becomes clear that he took no joy in it.
It appears I was mistaken, Ser Jaime. You were not the monster I thought you were. I was wrong to mix you with your father's plots. Thank you, Lord Stark. I'm glad to hear it, though a part of me now wonders what will happen from here. I have been told that King Robert will allow me to remain in the Kingsguard, and I intend to take him up on that offer. But I am now regarded as a traitor, and one who sullied my cloak. No, you have done nothing of the sort, sir. You were tasked with protecting the king, and that includes from himself. Aerys would have gone down in even greater infamy if you had done this, and would have dragged 500,000 souls to the seven hells if he did. You spared him that indignity, and you spared those people. Tell the people that. I do not need to. You are a true knight, and I see that now more than ever. No one may deny you that claim as long as you know it. Thank you. I just wish that I had been able to be there for Rhaegar's family. I know. At least, I do now. But you have done all that was asked of you and more.
He pats the knight's shoulder and thanks him, and Jaime looks at Lord Stark. For once, not seeing the cold, stern-faced man who often quarrels with his father. The lord's face slips, and he simply sees Ned, the man thrust upon a lordship in a war before he was ready for it. The two exchange goodbyes as Ned returns to the north, and Robert ascends the Iron Throne. Jaime's decision to remain in the Kingsguard is controversial, particularly by Tywin, who is dismayed to see his son not taking his place in Castle Rock, but there is little he can do. After the excitement, Robert's reign descends into one of rebellion. Though he may have defeated the Targaryens, many loyalists remain, and some houses have taken the opportunity to try and seize more territory. This leaves Robert spending his time putting down smaller uprises all throughout the realm. Jaime is left to ride by his side and aid him in these endeavors, as he is tasked with aiding the king and even helping fight and lead troops. Jaime proves to be an adept commander and an even greater warrior, being able to defeat more experienced opponents. With the knowledge of what he did during the rebellion, Robert has more trust and respect for the young knight. At first, he sees Jaime simply as a way to appease Tywin, but now he sees him as a true comrade and comes to rely on him during these difficult times. At the same time, the people in the court also regard Jaime differently. No one dares call him Kingslayer, but instead refer to him as the savior of the city for what he did. Small folk cheer his name as he rides through the streets, and lords honor him and thank him for his service. It is much better than Jaime could have expected, and Jon Arryn jumps at this appearance, using Jaime as a way to solidify their rule. He becomes the bridge that helps secure the alliance of the remaining Targaryen royalists. He commissions songs and plays about the Wildfire plot while keeping the young knight close to the king, showing how he maintains the old guard. However, to Jaime, his greatest responsibility is not guarding the king, but his lady wife, his twin, Cersei. It is a major part of his decision to remain in the Kingsguard. Moonlight spills through the windows of Jaime's chambers, silvering the edge of his white cloak, which hangs neatly on the wall. The room smells faintly of lavender and steel. He stands near the window, unbuckling his sword belt, listening to the muffled sounds of celebration drifting from the lower halls. Another feast, another song in his name. Behind him, the door opens without a knock. Cersei enters, dressed in gold and red, the fabric clinging like flame to her skin. Her eyes go straight to him, no words at first.
You weren't at the feast, but now you're Ser Jaime the Redeemer. The white cloak must weigh heavily these days.
Jaime doesn't respond. He sits on the edge of the bed, removes his boots, slower than usual. Every moment between them feels drawn tighter than a bowstring. Cersei approaches him and smiles, rubbing his shoulders and offering a kiss on the cheek, and then she slips lower. Jaime tries to pull away.
Cersei, please.
You loved that before, when you were younger, and we did this.
Things have changed.
I'm married to a fool and expected to be at his service every night. I have to pretend I do not despise him every time we have these feasts. Jaime, the only thing that ever made them bearable was having you there.
I promise I will be there next time. I'm sorry.
And who will be there for me now?
Your husband. Sister, I was lucky enough to not be regarded as a traitor before. I cannot risk doing something like this. If people didn't think I sullied my position before, they will certainly think so if I try something with you.
People? Like who? Ned Stark? Jon Arryn? Let them think what they want. They are all beneath us. Just a few men resentful of the heights we've achieved, of what we share.
Cersei reaches for him, fingers brushing the inside of his thigh. He grabs her wrist, not hard, but not gently either. She stares at him, confused, furious.
Don't.
Why? Because of your vows?
She snatches her arm back, standing up straighter.
You think this makes you better than me, don't you? All this praise, the king's favor, the songs. You think it cleanses you? You wear white and pretend you're pure, but you were mine before you were theirs. Oh, have you forgotten who you are? You think that you are the savior of the city, that changed that. No, you are already marked.
It would be easy to fall back into her now, but there's something else inside him, something new, or maybe just buried too long. Cersei turns without waiting for another word and walks out, her footsteps sharp against the stone. The door slams behind her. Jaime is alone with the moonlight and the silence. After this, their relationship dynamic changes. Cersei now treats Jaime like any other servant, ordering him about and regarding him as if he were dirt on her boots. Though he continues to guard her, her cold stares are worse than anything that people might have said about him. To make matters worse, she goes out of her way to hurt him. She acts unusually affectionate around Robert, stroking his chin, planting kisses on his cheek. Jaime watches all of this silently, trying his best to hide it, but underneath his cloak, his fingers grip his sword blade. Even worse is when she does it to other men. With Robert, Jaime knows that she only does it to hurt him. She does not truly care for him, but he is not certain with these other people. The handsome knights who visit court for tourneys, young singers with silky voices, and merchant princes bringing exotic gifts and breathtaking tales of lands across the narrow sea. Cersei welcomes all of them, treating them better than her brother. She offers them compliments in low, sultry voices, holds their hands, and plants kisses on their cheeks, all of this within sight of her brother. When she does, it is as if she is whispering into his ear, "You were mine before you were a Kingsguard." For weeks, he tries to ignore it, shaking his head and focusing on other duties. He tries to protect Robert or Jon Arryn, or represent the king in other matters. But times are changing. The rebellions are dying down, and the king is happy to remain in the capital. Bit by bit, his resistance is chipped away until he cannot take it anymore. That night, they conceive their first child. For the crown, there is much celebration at the birth of a royal heir. Many believe that this will help secure a smoother line of succession and ensure the continued strength of House Baratheon. But little do they know that the truth is anything but simple. After this incident, Jaime can hardly show his face in court. He is grateful for his helmet, keeping it on at all times to hide his shame. A part of him wishes to come clean and confess everything. He wants to throw himself at the king's mercy and beg for forgiveness. He has already stained his cloak once and gotten away with it. A second time would destroy him and his reputation, everything he had wished to avoid. Worst of all, the trust of the people. Many, like Robert, Jon Arryn, and Ned, had been eager to condemn him, but now they have held their tongues after hearing everything. If he reveals that now, all of that love will turn to hate in an instant. He forces himself to stay silent, and in that silence, Cersei continues to whisper in his ear. She senses weakness and continues to chip away at it. She tells him that they had already done it once. Another time will not affect a thing. They had gotten away with the worst, so there is nothing left to fear.
If their love is as conditional as that, then you do not need it. They love only the image of you. Only I truly love you for who you are.
Without anyone to consult with, Jaime soon falls for these words and allows himself to fall back on this relationship. At least here he has nothing to hide. It is familiar, welcoming, and part of him longs for it as much as Cersei. Soon enough, this gives birth to 2 more children, Tommen and Myrcella. Unsurprisingly, both of them look exactly like their parents. Yet for many years, no one truly questions this. Though they have blonde hair and green eyes, few look into it as it is simply a Lannister family resemblance. After all the Lannisters have these features. For over a decade, the pair can simply rest easy and enjoy their lives in court. Cersei must still deal with Robert, especially as the king grows increasingly fatter and less attractive during peacetime, while Jaime silently stews with the shame he's feeling after betraying his oath. Though he is tasked with guarding the royal family, he can hardly look upon his children without being reminded of what he did and who he betrayed. The night becomes reserved and distant from them. Even Cersei is not spared, as the night only shows up when they conduct their illicit activities. And yet, someone eventually notices. Jon Arryn notices how the Baratheon children look nothing like their father. It is things that are easy to ignore at first, but over time, questions arise. He knows how distant Cersei is and how little Robert loves her. It would be a miracle for them to have even 1 child, and yet they had 3. Not only that, but Cersei seems rather protective of them, refusing to let Robert have any access to them. Though the king doesn't mind, it seems a bit strange. And as Lannisters surround the court, their resemblance to the family becomes incredibly uncanny. This leaves Jon to begin looking into the matter. He conducts research into Baratheon bastards, studying the genealogies and observing all 3. Cersei remains completely unaffected. Robert is indignant, but he notices how Jaime seems so guarded and conflicted. Normally, he is cheerful and eager to show off, but now it seems like he would prefer to melt into the shadows. But before he can act on it, Jon Arryn is struck by a sickness that leaves him unable to look into matters further before he dies. None are more surprised at this than Jaime, and for the first time, he lets his anger show with Cersei. When she visits him later that night, Jaime tries to send her off, and when she refuses to go, he pushes her against the wall.
How chivalrous of you. Is this how knights of the Kingsguard treat their queen?
Don't toy with me, Cersei. Not now. What happened with Jon Arryn?
You think I killed him?
He was looking into our children, into what we were doing. You've wished men dead for less.
Don't be foolish. He's an old man sniffing where he doesn't belong. He has no proof, and will never find any unless either of us confess. I have no reason to kill him. But I won't say that I'm not grateful he keeled over.
Jaime is so disgusted that he sends her off without touching her. Yet the queen only laughs and nods.
When you finish weeping over that old man, you know where to find me.
Yet, not long after, Robert announces that he intends to name Ned Stark his new hand. To celebrate this occasion, he gathers a massive retinue and journeys to the north. Among those who journey there are Jaime and Cersei. But as they arrive, the two do not head to their quarters, but an abandoned tower. The halls are empty, the snow muffling their footsteps as Jaime climbs behind Cersei. Her hands pull him along, urgent, impatient. She laughs under her breath as they slip into the chamber and close the doors behind them. Moments pass. Clothes fall. Mouths meet. For a time, there is nothing but breath and heat and the heady illusion that nothing outside this room matters. Then, the creak of wood. Jaime hears it first. That subtle shift. He turns his head sharply and sees the boy.
Are you completely mad?
He saw us.
That's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
He saw us.
I heard you the first time. Quite the little climb, aren't you? How old are you, boy?
A child no older than 9, gawking through the open window, small hands gripping the ledge. Bran Stark. A wind picks up, brushing his dark hair across his wide, frightened eyes. Time stops. Cersei gasps and reaches for something to cover herself. Jaime is already moving. He rushes to the window, heart pounding. One hand reaches out, grasping Bran by the collar. The boy tries to scramble back, but Jaime is faster. He could end this now. A single push, a broken neck. Silence, forever. But then he sees it. Not just a boy. Ned Stark's boy. The son of the man who called him a true knight. The man he cannot face even now without guilt curling in his gut. Jaime's hand trembles. Shame grips his chest like a mailed fist. Instead, he pulls him inside and kneels down to face him. Bran lands hard, eyes flickering between them in horror.
What did you see?
The boy doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. His silence screams the truth.
Listen to me, Bran. You tell anyone what you saw, and I swear your brothers will weep for what happens next.
The boy blinks, silent, then nods. Slowly, reluctantly.
Smart boy. Now get out. Through the stairs. I would hate for you to fall on your way down.
But Jaime doesn't speak. He stares at Bran for a long time, then finally turns and walks to the window, needing air. Jaime says little. Cersei doesn't press him. She thinks it's done, that silence is victory. But Jaime feels the boy's eyes on him in every reflection. Back in King's Landing, the court stirs with news of Robert's journey and Jon Arryn's death. Ned Stark arrives, somber and resolute. He greets Jaime with the warmth of an old friend. Jaime can barely meet his gaze.
You've done well since we last spoke. I try.
And for the next weeks, Jaime tries to avoid him as much as possible. He cannot bear to be around Ned, not after what he's done. Each time he looks at him, he sees Bran. He sees the fear in the boy's eyes. And when Ned invites him back to talk or catch up, he recalls what he had done to the man's family, to the Kingsguard. This means he's not able to learn about Ned's investigation, not until it's too late. Once it becomes clear that Ned is aware of this situation and tries to confront Cersei about it, she responds by having her husband murdered during a hunting trip, leaving the Hand without a king. When he attempts to stage a coup and force Cersei to surrender, Jaime watches as Ned steps forward, accompanied by the few guardsmen he has left, along with the gold cloaks, whom he believes have been bought to his side. And yet, Jaime knows the truth. They had been swayed by his sister through Littlefinger. His fingers tighten around his sword as he silently prays that this is just some bad dream. He wishes Ned would back down, or somehow would come out on top, but nothing like that happens, and he delivers his ultimatum. And yet, as Cersei rips apart Robert's final declaration, the Hand turns to him and leaves Jaime shaking his head in horror.
Ser Jaime, I know you to be a man of honor. Will you assist me in this?
Jaime opens his mouth to speak, but thankfully Joffrey answers for him, allowing him to avoid the chance of rejection. Joffrey demands Ned Stark's life. And then, the gold cloaks spring forward, their spears thrusting into the Stark guards' backs. Soon enough, the entire court erupts into battle. Ned can only watch in surprise, staring at Jaime, the only man who doesn't join the slaughter. He looks at him imploringly, desperately, but Jaime doesn't move, as Littlefinger comes from behind and holds a dagger to his throat. Once all his men are dead, Ned Stark is led away in chains, leaving Jaime to ponder over everything. One thing is clear, though, that this is far from over. Though Cersei thinks that keeping Ned prisoner will force the North to yield and recognize Joffrey's claim, Jaime knows the truth. They are too loyal to ever surrender to someone they deem unworthy. Rather than surrender and bend the knee, they would sooner call their banners and go to war. That is precisely what the North does, assembling an army to march to war. But before they arrive, Tyrion returns to the city a day later, having returned from his trip to the Wall. Seeing him is a huge relief to Jaime, who fears that the North might try to capture him and take him hostage. Hearing that the North is marching south, Tywin also assembles his army and prepares to support them in King's Landing. He requests permission to march through the Riverlands, using a combination of bribes, threats, and other diplomatic tactics. He manages to secure a safe crossing while keeping his men on a tight leash to prevent the Tullys from being dragged to war. But Cersei and Joffrey's frustration grows. They still wish to avoid war and urge Ned to admit his treason to try and salvage the situation. It is only when they threaten his daughters do they finally get him to confess. This Ned does on the steps of the Sept of Baelor, in front of all the people. He does this under the promise that he shall be granted mercy. Yet when he finishes announcing his treason, Joffrey commands that his head be taken. Jaime is on his feet before he even realizes what happened, a sword in his hand. He looks around, glaring at anyone who dare stop him. Joffrey gasps out, and Cersei's eyes go wide. Sir Ilyn looks over at him, and then back at the Queen, as if asking what he should do. The small folk all stare in shock. Joffrey once again demands Ned Stark's head.
I'm afraid I cannot allow that.
Joffrey screams, traitor, Kingslayer. Once a Kingslayer, always a Kingslayer.
What do you think I'm doing? Ned Stark is your prisoner. He is a hostage who will help you keep that crown. Only if he is alive. The moment you cut off his head, you cut off any chance of peace with the North.
You act as if the North hasn't already been offered ample opportunities to yield. We've sent them ravens with terms and gave them generous offerings, but they still refused. It seems that this hostage brings up little.
And tell me, when the Northmen arrive outside the city gates, do you think they'll be rushing inside if they see Ned Stark atop the walls with a noose around his neck? No. Just because you couldn't force them to do what you want now does not make them useless. And if you think that, then perhaps you should ask our father what happened in the defiance of Duskendale.
Cersei looks ready to protest, but she cannot fault his logic. She realizes that Jaime had managed to outsmart her, and that only makes her angrier. Slowly, she reaches out to Joffrey and whispers to his ear. The king's face grows red with anger. He bows his head and orders Ned Stark to be taken away. When Jaime approaches them, both turn their backs on him, leaving him alone to pick up the rear. Later that night, Cersei continues to seethe, leaving Jaime with the task of guarding Tommen, as if to say he is not important enough to guard the king. Meanwhile, the new Lord Commander is Ser Meryn Trant, as Cersei believes he is easier to control. But as Jaime sits alone, he hears footsteps, and at first thinks it's Cersei. Instead, it is Tyrion who offers him a smile.
Quite a show you've had today. I hear the court is still talking about it. I admit, it feels good to not be the Lannister everyone is talking about.
Glad to see you can enjoy my shame.
Shame? Brother, I have known you for almost 30 years, and that was perhaps the most clever thing you've ever done. I commend you for it, but one has to ask, why? I've never seen you go above and beyond for anyone else. Anyone except me, perhaps.
Ned Stark is a good man. He does not deserve to die like this, and he is a friend of mine. You could say I owe him.
How honorable. I bet our Lord Father will at least be pleased with not having to lose his most valuable prize.
You think he will be proud of what we're doing here? Are we living up to the expectations he set?
Perhaps. Probably not, though. When have you ever seen our father proud of anything? You could give him a dragon egg and watch as it hatches a living dragon, and he will still find a way to critique it. And perhaps that is why you try too hard to win his love. It just might not be worth it anymore, Jaime.
He is our father.
He is also a heartless bastard. He has always been, and that never changed when he had us. So long as we are not his perfect heir, he will never see us as anything more than disappointments, afterthoughts. And then there is our sister. I am used to how she treats me, but I see how she acts around you, as if you are her little toy knight to use and dispose of at our leisure.
That is not true. Our relationship is complicated, Tyrion.
Quite complicated. But I know one thing. That is not love. When was the last time she has shown you affection without asking anything in return, or just gotten what she wanted? I had love once. It may have been a fortnight, and it may have been a lie, but I felt it in my heart. And Cersei has never given that to anyone but herself.
Jaime stares down at his hands, which tighten into fists. Before he realizes it, tears begin to well up in his eyes. Another lie, another betrayal, and one that stings deeper than any before. There was no righteous cause for that, no desire for peace, or wishing to prevent bloodshed. No, he cannot do it again. Jaime moves through the corridors like a shadow, and Tyrion keeps pace with him, torchlight flickering off the stone walls as they descend into the dungeons. At the bottom of the stairwell, 2 gold cloaks stand guard. They flinch at the sight of Jaime Lannister, and though one opens his mouth to speak, he says nothing when Jaime draws his sword, just enough for the metal to whisper from the scabbard. No one challenges them. Inside the cell, Ned Stark is seated, wrists shackled, his face worn and hollow. He looks up as they enter.
Lord Stark, you? We're here to get you out. Your daughter has already been freed, and a ship waits in the bay. It will take you to White Harbor. Why?
Don't ask me. My brother dragged me into this.
Because I failed to act when you needed me to before. I want to make up for it. You stood and watched them slaughter my men. You did nothing as my daughters wept. You let Littlefinger put a blade to my throat. Do you expect me to thank you now? And now I'm doing something. It's too late for that. I thought you were better than your father. Better than her. And what others thought of you. You proved me wrong.
There is no anger in his voice, no malice, only cold disappointment. And that is what hurts the most. He recoils and shivers, looking down at himself.
Let's go, before I remember why I don't trust you. You should come with us. You don't belong here. They'll turn on you the moment you're no longer useful.
And leave you here alone? With them? No. If one of us has to stay in hell, better it be the one who knows the way around.
Father won't execute me. But you, well, you have a bad habit of running your mouth. Now go.
They clasp forearms, a brief moment of understanding.
You're a better man than I am, Tyrion.
And prettier.
A few days later, the throne room is cold, even in the sunlight. Tywin Lannister stands beside the Iron Throne, his golden lion pin gleaming on his chest. Joffrey sits above, lips twisted in a petulant sneer. They are discussing the recent escape of Ned Stark and what might be done. The only mercy is that no one else knows about it. He accuses Jaime of treason, saying that by letting Ned Stark live, he provided him with an opportunity to escape. Tywin raises a hand and silence falls.
That is enough. Your uncle preserved a valuable hostage, which you squandered with your tantrums. Were it not for your uncle's foresight, we'd be bleeding already. Now, we have an army in the capital, but do not mistake that for approval, publicly challenging him, and still, we cannot ignore the fact that Ned Stark escaped. I hope both of you understand that I will not tolerate further failure.
Tywin Lannister stands over a war map, its surface crowded with carved tokens. Lions for his forces, direwolves for the north, stags split between Dragonstone and Storm's End. The sea is cluttered with painted ships. Behind him, Pycelle drones about grain supplies, but Tywin doesn't hear him. His focus is elsewhere. He moves a lion piece towards the Crownlands, splitting it into 2 groups.
Sir Kevin will lead the western host. He is to guard the Crownlands, reinforce the king, and keep the Blackwater secure. Sir Gregor will ride west to raid the Riverlands and to draw the young wolf's eye. Burn their fields, disrupt their supply, keep him chasing you instead of attacking here.
And the rest, my lord?
We sail.
Ned Stark rides through the gates beneath the white sky. No banners fly. The town is peaceful, if uneasy. It's not the north. It isn't White Harbor. The ship made a stop in Maidenpool, and Ned decides to get off, leaving Sansa to return home. There he is welcomed by Lord Mountain, who writes to Robb, informing him of his father's arrival. He offers to escort Ned to Riverrun, but before he departs, the Lord of Winterfell pens a letter to his son. He tells Robb that he has managed to escape and warns him not to march on King's Landing. In his brief conversation with Jaime, he learned that the Lannister army is converging there, and that trying to challenge them with forces of the North alone would be suicide. They will need allies. Their best chance is to join forces with Renly. Though he does not trust the young Baratheon after the incident in the capital, he is the only one who can help them with Stannis locked up in Dragonstone. Tyrion insists upon this as well, saying that though Stannis might have the better claim, he is not moved from the island even as the war begins to rage all around them. This only becomes more true when Tywin's fleet sells out. While most of the royal fleet remains loyal to Stannis, they are focused only on Dragonstone, and he has no army to call upon. The few bannermen he can call upon command only a handful of rocky isles, and these are now nearly unguarded as they answer Stannis' call. Flames leap into the early dawn sky of Driftmark as lion-sailed ships unload men and fire. The few defenders of Driftmark are no match for them. Soon the town burns in the distance. No one had expected the Lannisters to sail this far, and with their lord gone, no one is there to challenge them. Lord Valerian's youngest son is captured and taken hostage. The rest of the islands do not fall so easily as Stannis sends men to challenge them. They are superior sailors, and many of the Lannisters' ships burn or sink. Their soldiers are scattered across the narrow sea while Stannis' men fight them on the beachheads. But for every Dragonstone man, there are 3 Westermen ready, and the numbers soon show. Lord Celtigar surrenders after hearing of Claw Isle's fall. Lord Sunglass flees Seawater Sound with barely 50 men. Sharp Point is taken in a day, and Massey's Hook is captured when a Lannister force marches overland. By the week's end, red and gold banners fly over the shores once held by Stannis' vassals. His lords abandon him. His claim is bleeding. Though Dragonstone remains under his control, his forces are bottled up. And here, Tywin offers the lords of the Narrow Sea terms. If they are to kill Stannis and open Dragonstone's gates to him, he will not only spare their lives, but return their seats to them. Eventually, Lord Valerian and several of his men take Tywin up on that offer. In the dead of night, they open the gates to a Lannister force that captures the castle. Renly watches the smoke rise far off the horizon. His knights murmur. Stannis weakens, and the realm shifts. Word arrives of Ned Stark's escape from King's Landing, and his ride to Riverrun.
If Stark seeks your hand, then take it.
Renly doesn't speak. The rest of the islands do not fall so easily as Stannis sends men to challenge them. They are superior sailors, and many of the Lannisters' ships burn or sink. Their soldiers are scattered across the narrow sea while Stannis' men fight them on the beachheads. But for every Dragonstone man, there are 3 Westermen ready, and the numbers soon show. Lord Celtigar surrenders after hearing of Claw Isle's fall. Lord Sunglass flees Seawater Sound with barely 50 men. Sharp Point is taken in a day, and Massey's Hook is captured when a Lannister force marches overland. By the week's end, red and gold banners fly over the shores once held by Stannis' vassals. His lords abandon him. His claim is bleeding. Though Dragonstone remains under his control, his forces are bottled up. And here, Tywin offers the lords of the Narrow Sea terms. If they are to kill Stannis and open Dragonstone's gates to him, he will not only spare their lives, but return their seats to them. Eventually, Lord Valerian and several of his men take Tywin up on that offer. In the dead of night, they open the gates to a Lannister force that captures the castle. Renly watches the smoke rise far off the horizon. His knights murmur. Stannis weakens, and the realm shifts. Word arrives of Ned Stark's escape from King's Landing, and his ride to Riverrun.
If Stark seeks your hand, then take it.
Renly doesn't speak. He stares at the flames. He's waiting for a crown, and soon a sign comes as a delegation of Northmen arrives. At their head is Robb Stark, and accompanied by Tyrion. Renly reclines on the Lord's chair, wearing a crown of gold roses, his polished armor glinting in the torchlight. Loras Tyrell stands beside him, silent but watchful. Behind Robb, the Great John mutters under his breath, but says nothing as his young king kneels. Robb lowers his head.
I swore to free my father, and yet he managed to free himself. That means that nothing stops me from seeing this war won. Unfortunately, I do not have the men to win it alone. Stannis Baratheon is dead. You have the stronger claim. I will bend the knee.
Rise then, Lord Stark. We'll win this war together.
Very well. But make no mistake. We may be allies, but I have not forgotten who abandoned my father in his time of need. I offered your father aid. I offered him a plan, but he would not accept it. I was simply expected to die for him. You were expected to do your duty, even when it is difficult. Especially when it is difficult.
And is that difficulty why you now have a Lannister accompanying you? Or is he simply a pet? Be careful who you call a pet, Lord Renly. I am the only reason this alliance was forged.
All right, you've made your point. We can discuss making amends after this war is won.
This is enough for Robb, who clasps his arms with him, and the hall erupts in cheers. With the addition of the Northmen, Renly's camp is now spurred to action, and his army marches out. Word soon reaches the capital and puts them in a difficult position. Tywin stares at the Raven's letter, brow furrowed in the dim candlelight. Beside him, Kevin stands with arms crossed.
So, the North has bent the knee to Renly.
They march now under a single banner. Our scouts report they are attacking in 2 columns, one from the Riverlands and the other from the Stormlands.
Then we keep things that way. Strike at the Northmen first. Split them from their new southern allies. Crush their support lines, burn their camps. Isolate them before they can join forces here.
Tywin's plan works, at first. Kevin's troops surge through the riverlands in swift, punishing strikes. Though they are now allied, most of Renly's troops remain with him, sending only 10,000 men to reinforce Robb. This makes their army equal in strength, only if they unite. Tywin makes sure they don't join forces. The Greatjohn's forces are caught off guard at Stonehenge, encircled and scattered. Greatjon himself is wounded and forced to retreat north toward the Neck. Panic threatens the northern host as word of his defeat spreads. Other isolated bands of riverfolk are also cut off and destroyed when they try to join his alliance, not wanting to be left out. Roose Bolton takes half the Northmen and engages Kevin along the banks of the Trident, trying to buy time for Robb to reunite their forces. The battle rages along the river as he tries to hold back Tywin's army. The fighting is fierce there as Kevin's men try to force a crossing. Most of these efforts fail, but eventually Ser Gregor secures a foothold and beats back the Northmen sent to stop him, and Roose is forced to retreat, though he keeps his army in good order, and this delay is enough. Robb's scouts report Kevin's movements near Pike Maiden, and the young wolf smiles for the first time in days. He rides fast and silent, looping south through the river valleys with the bulk of his cavalry. Kevin Lannister marches toward Riverrun to claim a hollow victory. His men never see it coming as they pursue Roose's fleeing host. Robb's riders slam into them at dusk. It is not a battle, it is a rout. By nightfall, half of Kevin's army lies dead in the fields. The other half flees in disarray, pursued by wolves. Renly's forces wait on the cliffs, watching sails approach, watching as the Lannisters form up from Massey's Hook, joined by men at sea and more troops on the ground. Randyll Tarly rushes in, supported by Lord Morrigan, who levies the longbowmen on the Lannister army as they form up. With their lines in chaos, they are unable to withstand Randyll's charge. Exhausted and disoriented, the army is shattered within hours. When the last lion banner falls into the surf, Renly orders his men to march. Panic spreads through the city like wildfire. Black smoke rises in the west, where Renly's forces encircle the Gold Gate. Robb's banners approach from the north, encamped now beside the King's Road. The siege begins. Inside the Red Keep, Cersei watches from the balcony, wine in hand, her face a mask of fury and fear. Joffrey rages, demanding they burn the attackers, kill every man, and raze the fields. Tywin sends word to Kevin and his surviving troops, urging them to hurry back and strike at Renly's rear as the Baratheon lines form up. Their only hope is that they can hold out until Kevin's reinforcements arrive, but that hope appears bleak as the Stark forces beat Kevin to it. With freedom of movement across the riverlands, they have an easier time approaching and soon add their banners to the growing army outside the city. Things are looking bleak for the Lannisters, although not as bad as many believe. With the fall of Dragonstone, Tywin still has control over the sea and can get food from across the narrow sea, and with an army, the walls have no lack of men. If it comes to it, they can hold out for months. Both sides know this, especially Jaime, who secretly sends a message requesting a meeting with the rebel leaders. Later that night, he slips out of the city, wearing no armor and without a weapon. Renly waits in the shadows alone. Loras urged him to send guards, but Renly refused. He takes only Ned Stark with him and Tyrion Lannister.
You're braver than most think. And you're not as proud as you pretend to be. But this is daring even for you. There are many in my army who want you dead. I can say the same for you, but I do not come to appease them. You can take the city, but it will cost you thousands. I've paid more for less. Then let me spare you the trouble. I'll open the Mudgate. No bloodshed, no fires. But I want terms. Cersei is to be spared. She'll take the veil as a silent sister and live in the Sept of Baelor in silence, or wherever you want to send her. My Uncle Kevin, too. And his children, along with Tommen and Marcella. They have no interest in the crown and can be Tyrion's heirs.
Bold of you to assume I would never have children of my own.
You ask much, Ser Jaime. Especially when your army are on their last legs. Last legs, but not down yet. And enough supplies to see us fed for more than a year. It will not be a quick battle. It will be one that drags out for months. You know we cannot spare Joffrey or your father. They must die, I know. But I betrayed one king to save this city. I can always do it again. You were a different man back then. I was more of a man at 16 than I am at nearly 30. But perhaps I can be that man again.
Agreed. The city sleeps. Or pretends to. The gates groan open under moonlight. No horn sounds, no alarms, just silence and shadow. Renly's troops move swiftly, efficiently, pouring into the capital like a rising tide. The guards are too surprised to react, and many fall before they even realize what's happening. By then, they are herded together or slaughtered while Baratheon riders rush through the city streets. By sunrise, the Lannister banners are torn down from the towers. The Red Keep is under new command. Tywin Lannister is found dead in his solar, slain by one of his own guards before Renly's men arrived. Some say it was suicide. Others whisper of gold promised in exchange for a dagger in the dark. Joffrey dies on the throne, screaming as he is impaled on it. His body is dragged off as Renly takes his place. Loras stands beside him, silent. Below, the hall is filled with soot, smoke, and silence. Ned Stark stands near the dais and glances at his king. The question plain to both of them: what shall be done with Jaime?
He gave us the city. Some will say it was treason. Others will call it wisdom. He's still a Lannister. But not Tywin, not Joffrey. But not without guilt.
Both agree that they cannot let him remain in the Kingsguard and suggest letting him take the black. Jaime accepts with his dignity and bows his head. As he prepares to depart, Jaime spies Ned watching him from the shadows, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable.
Lord Stark, I apologize that I was not the man you hoped I could be. There are a lot of people I've disappointed throughout my life, but you are perhaps the one I am most ashamed of. Thank you, Ser Jaime. I can honestly say I wish there was some other way. You broke the law and betrayed so many. I know. I do not ask for mercy. That being said, you still always do the right thing in the end. My daughter may only live because of you. For that, you have my thanks. It was nothing, just one small act. But can a single act make up for a lifetime of mistakes? I am not sure, but it does show you are on the right track.
The two chuckle and clasp hands as Jaime rides off. With him gone, Renly works to begin rebuilding the realm. Tyrion is made Lord of Castle Rock, while Ned returns north. The South soon bends the knee to him, giving Renly a chance to rule in a time of peace. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.